The focus of this segment is finding and using previous research. Before a researcher starts to conduct their own research, they review previous research with a focus on the methods and findings of those previous studies. Therefore, before we start any projects in our class, we're going to be looking for and reading some previous research. The best source for information is peer-reviewed empirical research articles. Peer-reviewed articles have gone through a review process before they were published. The folks who do the reviewing are other experts in the field. Empirical means that data were used. Articles are published in research journals. Each journal typically focuses on a specific area of theory or area of study. You can explore titles of journals by discipline, and we'll look through how to find that in just a bit. You'll also find abstracts and links to the research manuscripts using a system called EBSCOhost. If you're on campus and go to our library, you can directly go into the databases and search for articles. If you're at home, you're going to need to first log in using your student login information to access the databases remotely. Once you've logged in, you'll want to click that you're looking for research articles, and that'll bring you into the database search. The page looks like this. We have our A to Z databases in the LibGuides or library guides. You can start to narrow your search by choosing the letter P to find databases related to psychology. After clicking the P, you'll want to select the option titled Psychology and Behavioral Sciences Collection, or EBSCO. Once you've selected EBSCOhost, you'll see a search bar where you can enter information to help you pull articles. You can also expand the search bar to be more detailed. For example, I could look for articles that have to do with the stress experienced by college students by simply writing the phrase college student stress into the search bar and then clicking the search button. This will allow me to view all of the articles in the database that have this search term or phrase associated with them. I could also make a more advanced search by clicking on Advanced Search underneath the search bar and then adding some other parameters, such as whether I want the article to be peer-reviewed, what years I wanted them to be published in, who the author might be, so on and so forth. But we'll start here with a simple search. We're just going to write in college student stress and hit our search button. If you'd like, you can follow along by logging into the database and copying my steps. You see the result of my search yielded 1,228 articles where the phrase college student stress was relevant. The first article listed is titled Stress and Life Satisfaction of Turkish College Students, and the second one noted here is Stress, Emotional Intelligence, and Life Satisfaction in College Students. Underneath the title of each of these articles, you also see the authors listed, when things were published, volume number, and then key terms listed as subjects underneath. Now there's two things you'll want to be careful of when you're selecting articles to use when writing papers in our class. You want the full text to be linked, either in HTML or PDF. If the full text is linked, you'll see the icon HTML or PDF underneath the article information. You can also click on the left side bar under the tab that says Full Text to limit the search results so that it only shows you those articles which have the attached full text. If the full text is not attached, the only thing you may be able to see is the title information, key terms, author, publication time, the things you would need for citations and references, and then the abstract, which is that short summary of the article. But if you're going to use an article as a reference in one of your papers, you're going to need to read that whole article to understand the methods that were used. The other thing you'll want to be careful of is that the articles you're selecting are peer-reviewed. If you look back at that left side tab, you'll see you also can click a box that says peer-reviewed to limit the search thusly. Let's try a more specified search. We can click on Advanced Search under the search bar to add extra parameters. I'm going to expand mine so that I use the words college students and specify that those need to be in the title of the article. And I want the word stress to appear in the title of the article. Though I'm not specifying here, those all three have to be together in one phrase, only that the phrase is college students, and stress appear somewhere in the title of the article. And I'm also going to require that the United States be mentioned somewhere because we're going to be conducting our research in the United States for this class, and so I want articles that are a better fit to those populations. When I enter all of these into my search, I see I have far fewer results coming up. Only 9 different articles met these criteria and had the full text attached. One of these that comes up is titled Comparison of Coping, Stress, and Life Satisfaction Between Taiwanese and U.S. College Students. And if I look at the bottom here, I see the icon for PDF, indicating to me that the full text can be downloaded. If I scroll down in my search, I see that the 7th of the 9 articles that came up was titled Gender Differences in Stress, Coping, and Illness Among College Students. This one looked particularly interesting to me, so I clicked into it. And now I can see that the authors are listed, the journal is listed, this was from the Journal of Individual Psychology, that this was published in the winter of 2005 in volume 61, issue number 4, and that this particular article appeared in pages 365 to 379. That's information that I'm going to need when I create my reference for the paper, and I'll also need that year and the author's last names when I put my in-text citations. We can also see, if we look down at the bottom once we've clicked into the article title, the abstract for that article. And I can read that abstract to get a sense of what the article is all about so I know whether or not it's a good fit for my paper. Again, if I look to the left side here, I'll see that icon has shifted for the PDF, but I can still click it to download this full article, because remember we limited our search only to those articles that had the full text attached. Another thing I want to point out here is if you look to the right side, you see several symbols here, or icons, one of which looks kind of like a yellowish sheet of paper on most systems, and it'll have the word cite, C-I-T-E, next to it. If you click that, it'll give you the option of what your citation could look like. And you can use that to get started with your citations and references, which you'll want to save for your paper. One warning I want to give you, however, is that even if you click that Cite button, tell it you want to know how to cite and reference this article in APA format, it may have errors. Oftentimes I see the error where it puts things like the title in all capital letters, which is not proper APA formatting. So I recommend using that little Cite tab to the side to get your initial reference, but then double check it and make sure there are no errors. That is, that it is following perfect APA format before you submit a paper with that reference in it. I want to point out one more really cool tool on this page. If you look over to that left bar underneath where the PDF attachment icon is, you'll see a little link that says Find Similar Results. If you find an article that you think is a really good fit to a paper you're writing and you want to find more articles that are categorized as being similar to it, you can click on that Find Similar Results button to the left and it'll pull a new search looking for articles like the one that you've just viewed. So I've clicked my PDF icon so that I can view or download the whole paper. Again, the paper I'm looking at here is Gender Differences in Stress, Coping, and Illness Among College Students. And this is by Matheny, Ashby, and Coop. I can download this article so that I can highlight in it, print it out, do whatever I'd like to help me read it and understand it, or I can just view it and read it online. I personally like to download all of mine so that I can highlight and add notes in them, and then I save them in a folder for when I'm writing my papers. I would recommend this strategy, but it's up to you whether you'd rather read them simply online or download them. Keep in mind, if you choose to read them simply online, that you'll need to keep logging back in to see that article again. And if you have spotty internet, this can get very frustrating. So I again recommend downloading, saving the articles you wish to use as references in your paper into a folder. Like you can make a folder on your desktop that's titled Paper 1 References, and keep the articles in there that you plan to use. That'll also make it much easier for you to find them when you need to cite them in your paper later. I also recommend that if you like an article and you download it, that you click that citation button and you copy that reference in APA format into a Word document. I like to keep a Word document in my folder of articles where I just copy paste those references so that they're easy to access later if I choose to use one of those articles in my paper. It actually takes a lot of time to go back and find a reference for an article if you've forgotten which one you were using at the end of writing your paper. It's much faster and easier to just copy paste it right on into a Word document for easy reference later on in case you need that reference. Don't forget the structure of articles when reading each article. You can start with the abstract of each article to get a sense of what the paper was focused on and what the researchers found. The introduction is going to give you all the background information building up to the hypothesis. The method will tell you who was included, that's the participants, how things were measured, that's the measures section, the tools used, and the procedures that were used to collect the data. The results section will tell you what was found from the statistical analyses, and the discussion will tell you what that means in relation to the initial hypothesis and all of the previous research. The discussion, of course, will also tell you about any relevant limitations and future directions that the authors of the paper found notable. When you're first trying to decide whether an article might be relevant to you, read that abstract. When you want to know what they found, you can read the results, and if you find those confusing, start reading the first few sentences of each paragraph of the discussion section. That can help you get a sense of what the findings were and what the authors think that means. If you're then going to create your own study, it'll be important that you read that method section to know what folks did, and then review the limitations and future directions in the discussion section so you know what pitfalls to avoid or what these authors have recommended the next set of studies do, or that is what the next researchers do in their own work. As I already noted, you're going to need to have citations in your paper and those clear references. Anytime you use someone else's research, you must give them credit via citations in the body of your paper and also on the reference page at the end of your paper. Let's take a look at a paragraph I've just selected from one paper here. This is a section of a paper titled Guiding Framework and Heterogeneity in Emerging Adulthood. Now notice when you're looking through here, we've got some sentences that are in standard form, but at the end of them you see in parentheses last names, comma, and then a year. That section there in the parentheses is the citation. There's a couple of different ways citations can be done, but the ones you're seeing here are called parenthetical citations. So let's take a look at this first sentence of the paragraph. Emerging adulthood is conceptualized as a relatively unstructured time of opportunities, self-focus, and identity exploration. Parentheses are net, 2015, end parentheses, period. What we get here from the citation is that the last name of the author who wrote the information from which this sentence was taken was Arnett, and that he published this work in 2015. Now notice the sentence is not in quotes. That's because these are not the identical words of Arnett. This is the author of this paragraph's interpretation or summary of what Arnett said. If, however, the writer here wanted to directly quote Arnett, that information would have to be in quotation marks, and we want to introduce the quote. So for instance, let's pretend this was an exact quote. We could instead write, according to Arnett, parentheses, 2015, end parentheses, quote, emerging adulthood is conceptualized as a relatively unstructured time of opportunity, self-focus, and identity exploration, period, end quote. So your two options are to introduce if you have a direct quote, or here, because we have a summary, we'll just use citation at the end. I strongly encourage you to stay away from direct quoting. What you want to be doing instead is restating the information in your own words and giving those parenthetical citations towards the end of the paper, or a parenthetical citation towards the beginning where the name appears outside of parentheses and the date still remains in parentheses. Now that we've completed a quick review of how to use the database to search for articles, it's your turn to find one. The article I'd like you to find is titled Comparison of Coping, Stress, and Life Satisfaction Between Taiwanese and U.S. College Students. The name of the first author is Nilka, Gnilka, that's the last name, and this was published in 2015. What I'd like you to do is find this article in the database, download it, and then you're going to upload it as your required EBSCOhost practice for this week. Review this lecture as many times as you need to learn how to navigate the system. Try clicking around in the system till you get comfortable finding things. You can even click on things that I haven't described to you here. You can also look for information on our library's help page, and I've added a link to that in our module with this lecture.